Hi, my name is Sarai Cook, and I am a formerly incarcerated woman and mother. I'm also licensed to practice law in the state of Washington and also the state of Oklahoma. I'm currently leading an organization called the National Trauma Awareness Initiative. One of our many efforts is to change the way people think and see others that have experienced incarceration. Many people that have experienced incarceration were victims long before they committed any crimes. These interviews are individuals with lived experience with incarceration. So today I'll be interviewing Omari, and I will let Omari introduce himself.
My name is Omari Millie. I am a father of six, live in Tacoma, Washington. My full-time job is with an organization called Choose 180 that works in the juvenile justice area. I also do contract work with Pierce County Juvenile Court as well, and a lot of public speaking. And I'm also an author. I published couple books. The most recent is called Transforming Society's Failure from Felonies to College Degrees. And I wrote a couple children's books, one called Skin Deep and another called In Search of Role Models as well. I am formerly incarcerated. Was incarcerated in 2006, got out 2008. And afterwards, I turned to education to turn my life around, successfully climbing from a GED to a master's degree and, doing a lot of work in the community ever since.
Thanks, Omari. I'm really happy that it's an honor that you would come on here and speak with me, and I really appreciate you.
For
Um,
sure.
we'll quickly I'll share the our shared understanding of what trauma is. So it's an individual trauma results from an event, series of events, or a set of circumstances that is experienced by an individual as physically or emotionally harmful or life threatening, and that has lasting adverse effects on the individual's functioning and mental, physical, social, emotional, or spiritual well-being. Um, I don't really feel like we need to focus on specific instances or occurrences. It's kind of like what you want to talk about. Um, but what do you think? Um, what do you think? Kind of thinking back, what are some of the things that you think contributed to your your path to being incarcerated?
And the biggest thing is just being born into a family that was dealing with addiction and poverty, homelessness, things like that. Everything that I went through as a child was kind of paving the way for my eventual incarceration. A lot of people who come from backgrounds similar to mine, with a lot of different issues that my parents went through from, turning to crime to support their drug habits. And I'm able to witness that, to, having a lot of negative influences around me that kind of introduced me to getting on the streets and hustling, at a young age. I first started out of necessity because we were dirt broke, because my needs weren't quite being provided because of my parents' addiction. I was exposed to things that kind of degraded my character and values in a certain way. I was totally willing to take from a store or take from somebody else in order to, meet my needs. And that sparked from my childhood where I'm observing other people doing these same things. So it was all learned behaviors, that I started learning these things at a young age and it carried with me into adulthood.
Did you see a shift in your understanding of, your values and the things that you're saying as far as your character was concerned? Did you see a shift at any point, or were you kind of thought one way and then sort of shifted that to thinking that it was, or feeling that that was like a means to an end, stealing from stores or whoever you had to, or sort of kind of living in survival mode? Do you remember a time that you didn't feel like that and how it shifted?
Yeah, it shifted just as I got older, as I got smarter, as I matured more. Your brain's not even fully developed until you're 25 years old. So young people make a lot of poor decisions and they're a lot more easily influenced by these outside forces. But as I got older, I would say that that's when I kind of developed a stronger character and stronger values and decided, look, I want to if I have to turn to theft or dishonesty or crime to get it, then I don't even want it, And that shift was made shortly before my incarceration, So it wasn't like prison or anything that made that change in me. It was more I just didn't want to live that lifestyle anymore. I had kids that I had to take care of and things like that. So when it was just me and I'm still a child, I didn't have any reason not to do these things. Really, it's like look, my life is a mess. I didn't have anything telling me don't do this. But once, I actually had other people to consider, like having kids to take care of, having a family of my own, then it's like, yeah, I need to do something different.
Can you take me back to your mindset, that mindset of where it was okay for you to do what you had to do to survive? Can you kind of tell me a little more about that mindset and like what that's like?
I mean, that's just the norm, for people who come from the ghetto, you living in the hood your whole life, everybody around you is either in addiction or selling drugs or doing something illegal to support themselves. It was just the norm. Like getting a job, going to work, going to school, that stuff was not the norm for me in this type of environments that I was in, the family that I come from. My generation and my family, we don't have many high school graduates. We don't have many people who just went down that square path, right? Like I'm just going to do what I'm supposed to do rather than doing what I have to do, So the mindset was really that there's nothing wrong with this stuff, that this is just the way that it's supposed to be because I wasn't exposed to anything different. So when you're exposed to nothing but negativity and it's pretty much dominating your life, you're not really thinking about it like I'm doing something wrong. Like this is something that if you go hit a lick and you make a whole bunch of money, like you're celebrating that. You're not feeling bad about it. You're not kind of, wishing you had did something different. You feel like you're winning in the moment. So my mindset was telling me, look, I'm on the come up. Like I'm able to change my whole trajectory from being dirt broke, poor, living in homeless shelters and things like that. Now I can afford my own place to live and nice cars, and I felt like I was successful. Like it was a sense of accomplishment that came along with the crimes that I was committing. So once that shift was made and I started to realize that, look, this life that I was living, even if I was making money, it was really miserable. I wasn't living life at all. So once I was able to turn it around and mature a little bit, I could actually see that that was a very destructive path.
What made you see that, or what made you? Because I think back to my times of when I was living that life, and I think about the car that I had, and I think about the money that I had in the bank, and I think about the experiences that I had. And, and then after I got out of prison, and I think about what I had at that point, and I was like, actually, I have a better life now, and I don't have to always look around and like think that someone's coming to get me, and constant anxiety. So what was it about, when you turned your life around? Maybe you didn't have did you like maybe you didn't have as much money in the bank, or I don't know, like what was it that was so much better about it?
Pretty much what you're not having to look over your shoulder, not having to wonder when everything's about to come crashing down, like having to deal with incarceration and being away from your kids and things like that. Once I got out of prison, I didn't ever want to go back again. So, every I feel like prison's pretty much the worst. Well, there's death, obviously, but
Yeah.
prison is like a horrible existence, right? If you're waking up every day incarcerated, that's not any way to live. So even being poor and struggling on the outside for me was a better like that's better than being locked up, than being incarcerated. And I can't even see my kids every day. So we might be on food stamps, we might live in low income public housing, but at least I have a roof over my head. At least we're getting fed. And this is all legal. This is not something that I'm going to get in trouble for. So that was the big thing, is like avoiding the consequences that came along with that lifestyle.
I remember um I remember being 19. I was 19. I had started going to juvie when I was 13, juvenile hall, in and out, in and out, in and out. And I remember being 19 and I got caught for the first time, possession and delivery of a controlled substance. Um, and to me, I felt, well, I didn't get the consequence of prison in that moment, but to me, I felt that even all that time I had done in juvie, it didn't show me that I didn't want to be outside more. I wanted to have a certain, I wanted to have my basic needs met by any means possible. Um, and I told myself, I'm going to keep doing this till I get some real consequences, which I did. And when I was 24, got some real consequences, got sentenced to 5 years in prison, didn't do the full 5 years, but, um, and at that, but in that moment, in that time that I did, I totally shifted my understanding to what you're saying, that anything on the outside is better than being on the inside. But I didn't have that same thought when I was 19. So I don't know, I think it's strange about age and experience and
Yeah, and a lot of time,
resources.
I don't know how much
Because I
time you
had
did
low
in
income
juvie.
housing too when I got out. I'm sorry I interrupted you, but
Oh, that's fine.
there were some resources there for me that I didn't have prior. But
Yeah. And I know that juvenile system, it often is just like a slap on there. I know there's some youth, I don't know about your situation, but there's some who actually get sent to juvenile prison. But then there's other who just like go to what in Tacoma it would be like the Raymond Hall or the King County Juvenile Detention. And a lot of fun, unless it's a super serious charge, like right now, unless you shot somebody or you armed robbery or something, they're gonna give you a slap on the wrist and let you out. So when you're young, you're kind of being conditioned that the consequences aren't that major. There's not much that's going to happen to me. And then, you find yourself turning the day you turn 18, or even you might be 17 and did the same thing, sometimes even 16, and they're charging you as an adult and putting you through that adult system. And then it's like, damn. So I guess that whole slap on the wrist thing is over now. And they're talking about years of my life being taken away. So I see that with a lot of young people. They think that they can just continue messing up, and nothing's going to happen because that's what this system is teaching them at a young age. And it's kind of a setup for failure. It's like we're going to condition you to say that this is who you become, but you're not going to be able to just magically stop when you turn 18. That's not the way things work. So they're kind of setting youth up for failure by not providing opportunities and resources and instead just here, take some probation time,
right. Yeah, when you say opportunities and resources, what do you mean by that? I think back to those days and I just had no context for life. I All I could see was that day, that however long my sentence was, that 30 days or um I had no context for life. I didn't know what life could be. I didn't know what was out there. I didn't know the possibilities. I didn't know, so much. It's just like that lack of context. And then like all I knew was this little world. And I know it's that way for others too. It has to be that way for others. So how do
for
we
sure.
give young people context and like show them what they can possibly do and have them believe it and have them know it and to kind of like have them want to, or it's a confidence thing. I don't think it's a want to. It's a I can't do that. I wouldn't be able
Yeah.
to do that, you know. So
Yeah, I
yeah,
think that
how do we
should be the focus of the juvenile system is to introduce those possibilities and to actually set youth up with like, okay, here one of you went and stole or you robbed because you didn't have anything. How can we actually solve the underlying problem of you not having anything? And we probably can't do that in isolation by just focusing on you. We got to focus on your whole family, because if you're not the breadwinner in your household, it's not even on you to make sure you have, instead of being one of the haves and have nots, to make sure you have clothes on your back, food, and things like that. So I need to provide resources to your parents to make sure that your needs are met, that you have a stable roof over your head. If the intention is truly to stop you from coming back, but the system proves over and over that that's not their intentions. Their intentions is more to keep people trapped in it. We're not going to provide any opportunities, any resources. We're going to just keep on locking you up, giving you probation, doing things that are more harmful than helpful. So if they really wanted to stop, like a young person, 13 years old, just got caught for their first shoplifting charge. Let's really figure out what led to this. Why did this person turn to stealing? It could be that they were just being goofy with their friends and did it out of fun, and they need a little bit less than somebody who I did this because I was starving. you know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I remember my shoplifting days, and I did it out of necessity. I did it. I remember I did it to eat. But yeah. What? So, do you think that it's intentional? That's intentional, or it was intentional in the beginning, and now it's just the system that's built to keep people down, or and people just they're not understanding that, or why do you think there aren't more changes being made to the system?
this is the American way: punishment and incarceration and causing further harms. That's just what we do in this country. When I say we, I mean I really I'm saying we, but I'm a black man, you're a woman of color. So it's not us. It's the white supremacy. It's dominant society that are really the catalyst behind this, and it's definitely intentional. It's definitely about creating a permanent underclass. It's about okay, slavery ended. How can we find more slaves? How can we force people into slavery without calling it slavery? We'll just call it incarceration and have them working as an economic engine. So there's big money involved in this stuff. If kids were to stop going to jail right now, you're going to lose how many jobs from judges, probation officers, prosecutors, defense attorneys, counselors, the people who serve the trays inside the detention center. If the adults stop going to jail, how many people lose their jobs? How many billions of dollars are no longer flowing? So it's all about money. It's all about economics. It's very rarely about public safety. There are certain situations where they might be, oh, this individual is super dangerous and we got to remove them from society. But that's not the majority of what you're going to see incarcerated. You're going to see in the county jail people who aren't even convicted of any crime. And a lot of the time, the crime that they're accused of, it's not really a public safety concern. It's not like there's some threat to be out in the community. They might have just, there's a lot of things that are getting people locked up. Someone who couldn't afford their child support payments, for example, finding themselves incarcerated. People who went through trauma, so they're self-medicating and get caught in possession of a controlled substance. Even in a lot of states, that controlled substance might be marijuana, where it's legal everywhere else. So it might be, I got caught with some Percocet pills, which is legal for anyone who a doctor wrote a prescription for, even though they're still abusing it, even though they're still addicted, but the doctor wrote them a prescription. So all of a sudden it's okay for them. So, you can tell by the way the system is structured, the things that are built in for pretty much white people and people with money to not have the same harms done by this system. Like they can get in trouble. They can be driving down the street in possession of a narcotic, whatever. Maybe they might get arrested and then they just bail out, and then they pay a lawyer. And that's pretty much for them. They show up to court a couple times and their lawyer works their magic and their case is over, or they got some type of really good outcome. But for people of color, poor people specifically, you're going to get arrested. You're going to be stuck in there because you can't make bail. You're going to have this pressure to take a plea deal. And a lot of people might not even be guilty of what it is that they're accused of. So yeah, the system is definitely
And
that
they
people
wouldn't
will.
even know. I'm an attorney, so I understand like the language that's in the law. I
Yeah.
understand the mens rea, the mental state that you have to be in, all the different elements of the law, if you are really guilty of that or not. Like I understand
Mhm.
that.
For sure.
Who understands that?
Yeah, the average
Nobody.
person does not understand that at all.
So they don't even know if they may have done they may have done the thing, but their mental state was not as has how it's written into the law. Or
For
there's so
sure.
many like technicalities, right? So there's just not that access to justice as far as like if I'm going to access the court system and I'm going to be a part of this process to that's going to send me to jail or prison or have me do time, have me away from my family and away from my job, but I don't even know what's going on
Yeah,
in this system.
for
So,
sure.
one thing I wanted to go back to is you said prior to going to prison, you made a change. And I'm curious about that. What that was, how that came about. Was it like an instant? Was it a process? Um,
Yeah, I was just done with the lifestyle that I was living as far as like that everyday grind, having to, do the little scams that I was doing. I was done with it, so I stopped. And
how do
I
you
was
stop?
gonna
But how do you stop? Like
I
I had to get
just
locked up to stop. I couldn't stop.
yeah, I just decided that I didn't want to do it anymore, and we had moved away. I moved from Tacoma to Portland, and my girlfriend had got a job. I was going to enroll at Portland Community College, and eventually the charges that I had caught up with me. So that by the time I was arrested, these charges were from like the year prior. They weren't recent charges. So I was just ready to live my life the right way. I didn't want to keep on going through I don't know where my next dollar's coming from. I got to go out and get it. I wanted to have a little bit more stability than that because I had children to take care of. I didn't want them to go through the things that I had gone through.
So I guess was it your family? Your family all everyone moved to Portland? Um, or like how does that even spark in your mind to or how did you even know that path? You just knew you had to get out of Tacoma?
Yeah, I mean the stuff that I was doing, it was pretty widespread. People started getting caught and stuff, and I was like, I don't want to be the next one getting caught. I don't want to be the next one getting locked up. So I decided to just do something different with my life. And it wasn't like I just immediately knew what I was gonna do. I just knew that I needed a change of environment, change of circumstances, and needed to find some other path. So for a while I was just sitting stagnant. I had turned from the crimes I was committing, but I didn't really I didn't have anything going for myself for a while. And it took a while for me to decide, well, I guess I should go to college or something. But I never got to start because I ended up getting locked up.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about being locked up. I had a series of events prior to being locked up that showed me well, I had gotten this job at this car dealership. And I never thought I was good at anything or I could be good at anything. And actually I was selling lots of cars and I was making good money. And I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
And that was actually I got arrested at the car dealership.
Oh,
But
wow.
yeah, so didn't have that job anymore. But that kind of led to sparked something in me, little experience that okay, I can be good at things. And like up until that point, and I was 24 at that point, I never thought that I would be good at anything. I thought I would always quit everything. That's how I thought about myself. Um, and then that spark kind of like that experience gave me hope while I was on the inside. And then I started going to a lot of groups and meetings and um I got a job as a welder. I got a job in the commissary. I was trying to like get in honor dorms and I was reading all these books. And it was like that small experience that showed me that maybe I could do something different. Maybe like there are things out there that I could do. And then it gave me more hope that the resources that I had on the inside and typing, I got up to 40 words per minute. And it was like little small pebbles of instances that would happen that showed me that, okay, maybe there is some hope for me.
Mhm.
Um, and I really utilized that time when I was in there. I played a lot of spades. I'm good at spades, but I also read a lot of books, tons of books, magazines, and just really worked on myself and thought about my circumstance and what I could possibly do when I got out because no education, no skills. I was like, I don't want to come back here. You don't want to
Yeah.
come back here. So can you tell me a little bit about like that process for you?
Yeah. So when I was incarcerated, they had me in this therapeutic community because I had a drug offender sentencing alternative, but I didn't even actually have a drug problem. That was just my sentence was the drug offender sentencing alternative. And that meant that I had to do this treatment slash behavior modification program. So a lot of my time was spent, doing the classes and stuff for that program. So while I wasn't I wouldn't consider that I was like really trying to work on myself. There was no intention behind like, oh, I'm trying to make these changes or anything like that. It was more just, look, when I get out, I'm not coming back. I know I'm not, but I didn't have any plan. I didn't set any goals for myself. I didn't like establish any plans. So when I walked out the gate, I didn't know what I was going to do. I was back to having to figure it out. And it took me a little while, finding little dead end jobs. Like I got a job at the Old Country Buffet, and I just like, no, this ain't it. There's no way that this is going to be what my life looks like. I'm not going to go from making hundreds of thousands of dollars doing these bank scams to working for, I think at the time it was probably like $7 an hour doing work that I felt was degrading. That it made, like, I don't knock people who are in that, that's what they want for themselves. But for me personally, I was like, no, I'm not. There's no way that I'm about to be trapped doing a job as a grown man with kids that won't even help you pay your rent. Like basically, if this is going to be your job, you're stuck on public assistance forever. I was like, no, that's not going to be the life that I choose for myself. I don't want to live a life of like, if I'm gonna trade in this negative lifestyle, I don't want to trade it for another negative lifestyle. I would actually want to live a life that has meaning, that I can find purpose in, rather than just settling for whatever society has for me. Because it was a setup. They knew when I walked out of there, I was going to have very limited options. They didn't expect me to make anything of myself. When the prosecutor decided, look, we're not going to budge on these 30 felonies. And if you take a plea, it's going to have to be for all 30 felonies that you were charged with. They knew that I was going to hit the gate, like with society pretty much pushing me back into a life of crime. That was their expectation. It was like, oh, he'll be back. Okay, he might have got the drug offender sentencing alternative this time, but he'll be back and we're going to be able to cook him.
Yeah. So I really think I feel like you said education was your out. I feel like education was my out. Um, I'm really thankful for having that as an opportunity. What do you think's the difference between you and I and our understanding that education was our out and that we could find a way through higher education and other people that don't try or don't? What's the difference between us and people that just won't don't take advantage, I guess, don't take advantage of the opportunity? And I say it's an opportunity because the higher up you go and the more educated you are, the less your record matters.
For sure.
And um, the lower you are, like if I wanted to be a dental assistant, I'm not getting a job. If I
Yeah,
want to be an attorney, I'm gonna know what I need to do that and jump through the hoops that I have to jump through and prove the things that I have to prove.
for sure.
Um, if I wanted to be a nurse, I can't do that. If I want to be a brain surgeon, who knows? So I guess what do you think is the difference between the options that we saw there, you and I, and the people that aren't seeing that as an option?
Well, I'd say a lot of people who find themselves incarcerated have very negative experiences with education. A lot of us didn't graduate from high school. A lot of us, didn't grow up feeling book smart, right? Like school's not for me. And it really, that's not a path for everybody. There's some people who that's just not, they needed to go into entrepreneurship or go into the trades or do something working with their hands, rather than reading books and writing papers and stuff like that, especially for years and years, right? So there's some people who they want another path. Like they don't want to have to go to, I know people who, were even like athletes in high school, right? And they're getting close to their graduation and like, they're like, look, I hate school. I don't want to go to college, So that just is where their career ended when they could have went forward. So it's not even just us, just our population that makes these decisions, but I would say there's a lot of negative K through 12 experiences that are molding people into thinking that education, for one, is not even attainable for them. Like for me, even though I enrolled in college, I didn't know how it was going to go. I didn't know. Like I still had a lot of gaps in my education, even though I had my GED. So I didn't really know the possibilities. Had I known the possibilities the day I enrolled, my whole path would have been different. So I
How
didn't.
so?
Well, like for example, had I met someone like you who was an attorney who had been to prison before I ever went to college, then I would have known being an attorney was possible. Had I met people who were like college professors before I went to college, and I would have known that was possible. So I never heard of success people who had went to college after prison and been successful until I had a master's degree already. Like this wasn't something that was on my radar. It's not something that was well publicized. I hadn't really heard any stories or anything until I had graduated with my master's and started connecting with people who had similar stories. So like
How were
my
you able? Yeah.
even like
Yeah,
I
that's so
really I
crazy.
really think I would have probably chose to go to law school if I had known that was a possibility, because as a young person, as a kid, I wanted to be a lawyer, and I thought that opportunity was gone with my felony convictions.
Yeah. I feel like along my path, there always was like one person to give me hope, the one person to kind of make me strive for more. And I always looked at people and said, "Well, it sounds mean, but I was like, I'm as smart as this person, or if they can do it, I can do it." And there's always a person that presented themselves to me. But yeah, it's that's right. Why do you think that folks like you and I, we we can only see ourselves doing something that we see other people have done? We're
You
not
just
saying I'm
you just
blazing the trail. I thought lots of people that went to prison went to law school and became attorneys. I thought in my mind, I didn't know who they were. I was like, well, I don't know any attorneys. I'm sure they're out there. Um, I didn't
yeah,
even know if I was going to be able to become one. I thought I just said I'm going to try. But why? Yeah. So why do you think that we feel like? Um, I guess what's that thought process of? Let me formulate my question properly. Of not thinking that we can do things because we're not seeing other people like ourselves doing it.
you're just not aware of the possibilities. It's no different than when I'm a child and everyone around me is selling drugs or gang banging instead of going to school and going to work. It's what you're exposed to is what you're going to believe is possible. If there's nobody who has introduced a possibility to you, it's not going to be something that pops into your brain. Like I would have never thought, let me go become a scientist or something like that, until I see that someone else had done that, because most of these careers, like an attorney, is not a new career, right? This is a profession that's been around for a really long time. I just personally never knew an attorney. I had like not only formerly incarcerated, but just a black attorney, or someone who came from the ghetto, someone whose parents were someone who dealt with any circumstance that I had ever dealt with, and they made it there. It's not to say that these people never experienced that, but I was just never exposed to that you could be a dropout, for example. Like I'm a high school dropout, but
Mhm.
I'm a college professor at the same time. Like there's no, if no one introduces you to the idea that this is a possibility, then why would you think that, okay, I can go out and this? You're going to be thinking based on your limitations. That's what people do when they come from these backgrounds. Is you're told all the time, you can't do this, you can't do that, you're not going to be able to do this, you're not going to be able to do that. So your decisions that you're making are based on these limitations that people are telling you about. So if someone says, oh, you're never going to be able to get a job, oh, you can never work in the medical field, you can never work in this, you can't work with youth, you can't do this, then you're going to think, okay, I shouldn't fill out this application for this job to work with youth because I've been told people with felony convictions cannot do that. So until you see someone who has felony convictions and they are doing that, then it's like, okay, so obviously that what I was told was wrong, but
Right.
if you don't see that example, then you're going to keep believing it.
So true. So true. Um, I usually ask a question at the end. If there's one thing that we can change about the criminal justice system, and I usually ask, what would that be? But I want to ask you more about the juvenile justice system, and what's something or some things that because that's where it starts. And what do you think can be done there to change how we're dealing with how we're helping and assisting youth to have a better life and have some agency over themselves, and even though they're in a position of like so much, they don't have a lot of power. They have a lot of power, they could have a lot of power, but they don't have power over, like you said, the money that comes into the household. Have a lot of power over. They might be even genius, they might even be very intelligent young people. And and because they have access to um, the internet now. We never had that. Older people didn't have that. They know more than a lot of older people now because they know technology, and technology is relevant in society today. And there are a lot of older people. They might have life experience, but the world has changed. So actually, the youth voice and the youth understanding and knowledge in today's society may be, I hate to say it, but may be more valuable than baby boomers experience.
For sure.
So it's so important that we honor our youth and their understanding of the world and listen to them, because that this is the new world, and the new world of technology, and the new world of all these things that have come in the last 20 years, into like the job market. They're better equipped to do that than a lot of people. And so if that's the case, um, we need to honor and value them more. So how can we do that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there should be a juvenile system. Like if you're a youth, you're a young person, you're still considered legally a child, then there should be no such thing as court. There should be no prosecution, no probation, no none of that, because those are things that cause harm. They're not things that solve problems. I've never heard of a prosecutor solving a problem. I've never heard of a judge, a criminal judge solving a problem. Probation does not solve problems. So maybe that money would be better spent addressing underlying issues, providing supports, providing opportunities and resources, not just for the youth who, found themselves in a situation, but for their parents, or if it's not their parents, whoever the adults are in their life. Some of these guys don't have any family. Some of them are in the foster care. Like how could you, with a clear conscience, send a kid in foster care who was thrown away by their parents? No one in their family stepped up to take care of them. They just been trapped in this foster care system, going from placement to placement. How can you, with a clear conscience, say, oh, this person's a criminal and we need to send them through a criminal justice system because I don't care what it is they did. It could have been that they shot somebody. But
Yeah.
if they had those circumstances that I just described, then what the response to this needs to be addressing the underlying issues, addressing the harms that the system has caused. The people who were supposed to protect them obviously further harmed them, right? So how
Yeah.
can we want to hold this individual, this child accountable rather than holding CPS accountable, rather than holding this messed up system accountable. So if it was up to me, there would be no such thing as like juvenile court or juvenile criminal proceedings. It really doesn't make sense. And like I said, there's some people who can't see the trauma. They can't see the background that they came from. They can't see why the decisions were made that were made, but those people don't care to see it. These are some of the people who are maintaining the status quo and upholding white supremacy, so that's why they don't see it. They don't want to see it. But there's no way that we can keep this system in place without doing harm. So the harm is going to continue. And it's a pessimistic view, but I really don't see us getting rid of juvenile court anytime soon because once again, where are these people going to go to work at? They're going to put up a fight. They have unions that are supporting them, and there's a lot of money behind it, a lot of backing. So is this thing really about to just fade away? I really doubt it, but it needs to. That's the only solution. And
What
I
do you
work. I
think?
have a caseload of 10 young Black males who are through Pierce County Juvenile Court for some of the most serious charges like shootings and robberies and stuff. And when you talk to these kids, like, because they are kids, You talk to
Yeah.
them, they're just regular. They like to play video games. They need some stability in their life. They need adults in their life who give a damn about them, but they don't have that. They don't have that. What they're surrounded by, the people who do show them love is like their gangs, for example. It's like I can be with my homies and we actually look out for each other. I had a friend who broke bread with me. He came up and he handed me some money or he handed me some food or he did something to try to help me and put me on. But all these other adults in my life, they're just mad at me and trying to punish me. So it really just takes for this whole system to be dismantled for us to see progress. And like people say that, oh, we have progress because there's less kids in Raymond Hall right now. There's not every unit used to be full and now there's less kids. But how many are now on probation, having people just pop up at their house for no reason? How many young people had to go to a court date just because they missed curfew? I came home late, so now I'm in court. That does not make any sense, but it's keeping people employed. It's giving them something to do on a day-to-day basis. Because without that, these courtrooms are empty, because there's not just hundreds of kids out here shooting people. There's not, and when I say hundreds, I mean not in this area. Like in Pierce County today, there's not going to be 100 kids who shot someone. So in order for this system to run, they have to, let's have these status offenses. This, if you were an adult, what you did would be perfectly fine. It's perfectly fine that you spent the night at your friend's house because it got too late to come home. But since you did that and you're only 16 or 17, now you got a warrant and you got to come to court because you spent the night at someone's house. So this juvenile system is horrible and it's very damaging. And yeah, hope that answered your question.
What could it look like? What not that system? What could a system look like that actually would empower and help and support juveniles?
Well, you'll be
Youth.
providing counseling, therapy, job training, and education opportunities for parents. Like the money that's spent on these court proceedings and incarceration and probation, let's actually spend that money on the family instead to help them climb out of their situation. Let's get the adults to a point where they're not trapped in poverty anymore. And it's not going to be we just snap our fingers and do that because they have things to overcome. So like I said, you would be address. What it looks like is we are addressing underlying issues to make sure that the problem doesn't reoccur, rather than piling on to these underlying issues and ensuring that more problems will occur.
I love that. Thank you so much. Is there any last words that you'd like to say? Any words of wisdom?
I mean, it's all about just introducing new possibilities, and I appreciate you doing what you're doing because that this is going to be seen by people who hopefully they'll have their mind sparked in some way, whether it's my story, someone else's story. I feel like you're gonna do great work with this. And I'm looking forward to watching some of your other interviews with other people.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
For
And I'll
sure.
come to your class anytime.
All right. I'm looking forward to it.
You have a wonderful day.
You too.
All right.